Good evening. I'd like to call the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District November 10, 2014 meeting to order. Please stand.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for the families of 8 firefighters that passed away this past month. Dear God, we come to you tonight and we just ask that you will bring blessing and comfort to those that have lost a loved one. I thank you for those that served faithfully and just gave of themselves. I pray, Lord, that you'll watch over them. And Lord, we pray for protection and watching over our firefighters and their families, that you will always keep them safe. Thank you for the job that they do. Thank you for our freedom. Thank you for our nation. Be with those that are serving and watch over them. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business this evening, I need a motion to approve the regular board minutes from October 13th, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Need one motion for the financials for the October 2014 and current expenditures, the acknowledgement of October 2014 financial report, and the acknowledgement of wire transfers and transfers between accounts.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any old business this evening? Anybody have anything? How about new business? Anybody have any new business? Then we'll move to presentations.
Thank you, Chairman. This first presentation will be for firefighter Leo Willette for serving as a pension trustee from 1995 to 2014. I wanted to read the letter that the district has written to firefighter Willette. The Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District offers appreciation to firefighter Leo Willette for your 19 years of service, rendered as a trustee of the pension board. The district recognizes your dedication to duty and the high standards you exhibit as a professional. Your pursuit and achievement in service serves as an example for the employees and citizens of the fire district and is no small part a contributor to our tradition of excellence. It is in this light, Leo, that we wanted to thank you for your service. If you'd come up, we'd give you the award. Leo's going to be retiring soon, so he's already, I think, bought your RV, right? The next presentation will be to Assistant Chief Greg DeWitt. Assistant Chief Greg DeWitt is being promoted from a deputy chief of the fire district. Assistant Chief DeWitt has done his duties in an outstanding manner, and I saw it fitting to promote him at this time. And I want to offer him congratulations for a job well done and earned to your new position, Assistant Chief Greg DeWitt. I believe his wife is here.
Well, next item is still you, Chief.
Yes, so I wanted to I have a couple items here. I wanted to inform the board that we did fill our prevention inspector's position with Inspector Worth Anderson. I'm not sure if he's here or not. But he is doing well, and he's on board, and he's in training with the fire marshal right now as we speak. But he's going to hit the ground running. He's got great experience, and we're confident he's going to be an excellent component of this organization. So I just wanted to let the board know that that has taken place. An update on the EMS, ambulance transport. We have filed our reply brief, and now it's in the circuit court, and we're just waiting for a reply from the circuit court. And I spoke with Maggie maybe an hour ago. Well, she left a message saying that she's not sure how long it's going to take, but she's going to make some phone calls and try to speed it along so we can get our case heard. Is going to be the next goal by the judge. I believe it was last board meeting. If it wasn't at a meeting, I think it was Commissioner Casilla had talked to me about looking for a place to put the boat down on Hickory Boulevard to try to increase or actually decrease our response times to our emergency water rescue operations. Lieutenant Rich Scott went and did some investigating. I don't know the exact story how he came up with this, but he found a potential site with Commissioner Casilla that we may be able to put our boat in the water and reduce our response time from about 10 to 15 minutes out to the Gulf, which of course we run a lot of water rescue, so that is extremely significant for us. It's not yet a done deal, but it looks promising at this point. I just wanted to inform the board and the community that we're moving in that direction, and thank Commissioner Casilla for his work on this matter.
Where exactly again is that location?
It's at the north end of Hickory Boulevard, so it's in a perfect location. It is a actual resident who owns a large property on the back bay, and he's offered us to use a slip of his, which at free of charge at this point. I'm not sure if that's going to be the end result, but at this point, he's offering us on his site a place to park our boat in the water. There's some issues. We'd like to put it on a lift, but we're not sure that's going to happen. We just want to right now ascertain the actual agreement with this gentleman, and he's a super nice guy, and he just wants to give back to the community, and that's why he's offering this to us. So.
Chief, if I can interject a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I met with that gentleman today, and he does not want to lift there, which is fine. He wants us to keep our boat in the water at all times, and he actually wants it closer to his home than we thought he would, because it's it's an eyesore, but he wants to be able to see it. He's providing us with electricity and water. He wants no money. He wants nothing to do with that. Use the money to whatever we need to help us keep the boat in that position. All he wants is the legalities taken care of, and I think we should just talk to our lawyer and get everything written to cover both ends. But I think we should move on this as soon as possible, because it's a great location, and if it's going to decrease our response time by that much, that's significant. And I want to bring that to the board as soon as possible and get approval.
The question I have about leaving a boat in the water all the time is, I don't know how the guys that are in charge of the boat feel about that.
I would like to have Rich, Lieutenant, if you could talk about that, because we discussed that today, about leaving a boat in the water if there's be any problems. What's your
if you want to
thoughts
come
on
up to the, Rich, if you would come up to the. I was going to thank Richie, but I'm tired of thanking him for all the work he does.
Lieutenant Rich Scott, I think most people here know me. Some of the issues, there's pros and cons to everything. The big part is that the response is going to be faster. We drove down there, we timed it from the station to the location we're talking about and to the ramp. It's about 3 miles closer, plus the time of actually launching the boat. In season, the ramp can be packed full of people, and it's difficult. Anyway, if we leave it in the water, we have to bottom paint it. And anti-fouling paint is probably $500 for that boat, and it's something that has to be addressed every year. We have to pull it out of the water and have it redone. Several times during the year, depending on how much we move the boat or use the boat, we may have to clean it as well. There's going to be some maintenance issues, keeping it outside, the sun, UV, weather, but you know, we're in the business to run calls, and if we can save time, you know, I think it's a good idea as well. So it's not significant. A lot of boats stay in the water. It's just
Is
little
there a
more
way that we
maintenance.
could put a cover over the boat at this dock site, or?
You can answer that, because you discussed it.
Yeah, I think the best way to go would be to cover the console and some of the electronics
Right.
and the gauges from the sunlight and that. But if we cover the entire boat, I don't think there's a way to put a cover up above it. And if we put a canvas cover, it's going to slow us down,
Sure.
because now you have to remove it. But we
Yep.
could put a small cover over the console. I think our biggest concern down there is going to be theft, vandalism, possibilities, those kinds of things, which we've already started talking about. Maybe a surveillance camera, some lighting, and, you know. see
So you're
what
gonna bring
happens.
this back to the board when you've got it all worked out?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Yeah, this is a work in progress. That the last report was, this just took place today, I guess around noon time, where they met with the gentleman. So we expect to see some continual progress on this and more details as we get a little closer.
Another question that comes to mind, these are just off the top of my head, is sometimes we assist, we run calls to the south.
Mhm.
And will you still be able to get to Wiggins Pass area quicker by having the boat in the water or trailer in it, or is that hard to say?
I don't believe it would be quicker to go that far south. It probably would be faster to go, you know, turn down Vanderbilt and go right down to the Wiggins Pass, the boat ramp down there. It's only about 2.5 miles away by land. So that application or that location would be slower. 'Cause we'd have
But
to
most
drive
of the
all way
calls we
down.
run go either west or north of there anyway. right?
Probably 90
So, okay.
plus %.
So it really
are-
wouldn't matter.
From that location north towards Fort Myers Beach, and
Right.
that's our main MERT response.
You got plenty of water there, I'm sure you've looked at that.
Yeah, yeah. So the other nice thing we discussed today is that without the lift and just putting it in the water, other than the expense of the bottom paint, if for some reason this goes south or we decide it's not
Right,
doesn't work, we just put the boat back in the trailer. And there's not a lot of
Sure.
waste there, there's not a lot of money, you know, we can always just go back to the way it was, which works. You know, so, and we're not done looking. I think that we can kind of investigate a few other areas, and we're still looking around a little bit, but this one is definitely the top of the list right now.
okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thanks, Lieutenant Scott. Also, I would like to speak about a project we do have going on, what's ongoing right now, is we are going to be putting out to bid our grounds work for our lawn maintenance and maintenance. If I think Assistant Chief DeWitt's pulling up some pictures here, if we could get the lights. Thank you, Lisa. The other day I was outside and I was talking on my phone, and then I started taking pictures at some of the sites here at Station 4. As you can see, it should be, I believe, up on your screen here.
There we go.
Greg, if you want to run through. This is, you probably see it but don't recognize it as this typically. That's what the front of our station looks like right now. As you can see, we have no mulch, we have no rocks, the plants are fading. And as Greg goes through some of these pictures, this is what we have in front of our station. And the last order that was given by Chief Kinsey as far as the station goes took place in the economic downturn, in which basically we cut everything out except for keeping the lights up and running and you know, the electricity and water, so we could provide the service. But I think we're in a position, and we do have it in the budget, to start keeping the maintenance up on the buildings effectively, as they should be. I just wanted to inform the board that this will be coming to your attention, and I'll let you know when we start moving ahead on this. It doesn't need a motion, but we do have it in the budget, and I wanted to make you aware when you start seeing some work. Also, we're going to be doing some work on the parking spaces out here. We're talking about blacktopping it, painting it, removing some of the parking blocks, and just lining it without the parking blocks, except for the ones that are blocking cars from running into the light poles. But and we are looking at maybe some other I guess you'd say upkeep of the station. So
This is all stations?
this station is going to be initially, but it is going to encompass all the stations.
Because I know even the new station, 5 is, I don't know what happened to the landscape company, but it's starting to look shabby too. I've noticed that. I drive by there regularly, and I've noticed that some of that is not looking as good as it did. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine what 3, looks like. But I mean, so as long as we're going to address all the stations and obviously hire or put out the bid for a new landscape company, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
Because this one doesn't appear to, at least from my observation, doesn't appear to be doing that great a job.
And I think what Deputy Chief Giuliano has been working on is he manages the facilities, and what he's working on is not just doing one bid for just maintenance of all, I guess you'd say the plants and the grass cutting, but having different companies do sub each company out. Because right now, the people who cut the grass say, yeah, well, I can take care of the water and I can take care of but that's not always the case.
Right.
They sub it out to somebody else to do it. So if we could do that and just have 3 different companies to do our, irrigation, our typical grass cutting, and designing and maintaining our landscaping is the route we're looking at.
And we have a separate contract to do the large field, is my understanding, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
going to remain the same.
Yes, sir. As far
Okay.
as, from my understanding.
Correct. Well, so far we've only got one guy that does that as needed, but we're talking about maybe doing it more often. Like we say, that's our front yard, and it looks pretty shabby. It's kind of embarrassing. So
Agreed.
we're going to try to do everything we can to make it look presentable.
Thank you.
And that is all that I have, gentlemen.
Thank you. Chief Giuliano?
Well, good evening, everybody. I've got one story here, and I'm basically cheating because I was out of town for almost a whole month and didn't get a chance to do a lot of research. So this is something from a long time ago. And I'll just kind of read how it reads here. It's about 20 years ago, actually. It was one of those crazy summer days with 20 things going on at once. We were testing the fire pumps on all the trucks, which meant each engine would have to go and have their pumps tested, usually taking several hours while tying up the truck and their whole crew. Meanwhile, as always, we must maintain coverage in our respective districts and run the emergency calls. There were several calls going on at once, and even our ladder truck was busy working on a car fire when we got a call which came in as possible heart attack, man working on a landscape crew, and gave us an address. I was a brand new lieutenant and was still a bit nervous about the responsibilities that go along with the job of running my own crew. This sounded like a pretty standard type of call, one we had run probably thousands of times. 2 of us on the rescue truck responded on the rescue and to the scene and expected to see someone maybe sitting on a truck bumper complaining of chest pains. But instead we were met with what seemed like mass chaos. Cars and trucks were everywhere, blocking the street, and people were milling about, and they were shouting at us. Landscape company turned out to be a tree trimming company. And when I asked a worker on scene who was having a heart attack, he pointed up into the sky, and it turns out the guy having a heart attack was tied on the top of a very tall tree. His co-workers and people from the neighborhood were screaming for us to get him down and to help him. To top it all off, there was a very large woman standing in the middle of the street wearing a somewhat tattered robe and had about a half a dozen people around her. She was yelling at the top of her lungs that she was a certified witch and had been communicating with this guy in the tree telepathically for over 2 hours. Then she screamed even louder. I knew this was going to happen. She then began waving a piece of paper over her head and screamed for us to call the professionals, call the professionals. Well, up until that very moment, I thought that someone had already called the professionals. It was us. But I was beginning to wonder. I was beginning to have my doubts. I had to get control of the situation. I requested another engine to be dispatched, hoping to get a longer ground ladder to the site and more manpower, as I knew our ladder truck was already committed to a car fire. I also requested a Lee County Sheriff deputy for crowd control. Then walked up to the witch, and as politely as I could under the circumstances, basically kicked her off my emergency scene. I had the other firefighter retrieve the paper she was waving around, and it turned out that there was a phone number for the tree service that was cutting down the trees. So I escorted her away from the area. There was a backhoe on the site, and the operator was there, so I tied myself with a piece of rope into the bucket and had the operator lift me up as close to the guy in the tree as possible, allowing me to communicate with him. I found he wasn't having chest pain, but it sounded like he may be suffering from heat exhaustion. I had one of the people in the street run to their home, get wet towels, and told the guy in the tree to put them on his head and on his shoulders. We also got him some Gatorade to drink. This perked him up, and I determined he would be stable enough to remain right there in the tree till I can get our ladder truck there to safely bring him down. Meanwhile, the witch had left and the crowd calmed down, reassured that there was something being done for the patient in the tree. The ladder truck soon arrived, having extinguished the car fire, and I was able to climb up the ladder to the patient, secure him with a harness and a rope so he wouldn't fall off the tree, and cut him from the rope he had secured himself with while cutting the tree limbs. We then got him safely off the tree onto the ground. Our ladder operator did a fine job maneuvering the ladder around and under the numerous electric wires and other obstacles confronting us in our effort to rescue this gentleman from the tree. All's well that ends well, but I will never forget my first encounter with a certified witch. Again, good training, ComHead saved the day. When someone doesn't know who to call, they invariably will call the fire department. Firefighters have to be very versatile and top of their game at all times. They often have to adapt to situations most people couldn't imagine to get the job done. We never really know what the day will bring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did have to mention that if Deputy Chief Giuliano would like to go over some of the hose testing and the reason why we do it and the ladder testing that's going on now.
Yes, you guys may have noticed there's a bunch of guys out there now testing our hose and our ladders. Yearly for ISO, we have to have our hose tested and our ladder tested. And we have to document that it's done. So we have a company that comes by and does it very reasonably and keeps our trucks in service. What they'll do is they'll test all the hose on our reserve truck, call a truck in, take all the hose off, put the tested hose on, and then test that hose, and then continue on and on and on. They're working today and tomorrow. Today they're going to do all the apparatus, and tomorrow we'll do all the spare hose and our condo boxes and all our extra ladders, things like that. They actually have to test the ladders and make sure that they test them for durability, strength. They put new stickers on them, and they have the stickers on to see if they've been burnt. If they're burnt, we can't use them. There's same with the hose. They got to be tested a certain PSI under when they put under extreme pressure, make sure they don't burst. Last thing we need is a hose that's going to leak when we're using it. So every year we wind up with some hose that don't make the cut basically, and we'll wind up replacing it, but mostly we'll fix it and repair it and put it back in service. We've got hose here from since 92. Are those still there? One of the first things I did as a brand new firefighter was stencil all the holes, and I still see some of the stencils running around. So it's here for a long time.
Thank you.
Assistant Chief DeWitt.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to bring up, I know in the news it's been all over about the Ebola, and I just want to reassure the board and the public that we are well prepared for it. We've met with Lee County EMS and the hospitals, and what we've come up with is a protocol somewhat of how to respond to it. Dispatch center will, through their questioning, will recognize if a person is at risk. At that point, we will do a unified command and get together with EMS, and this is for the reason we don't want to expose a lot of people. We want to expose as minuscule as possible. Our hopes are to have 1 to 2 personnel go in there. But in our opinion, this is like any other call, like a hurricane comes through, how you respond to a hurricane, just like we do every other day. The only thing that we really had to do special on this one is get a little bit more of our equipment. Our isolation suits, we up those because now, because of the fear, people will start to have a little bit of panic or whatever, so we'll be using isolation suits a little bit more than we have in the past. So for us, it was business as usual. We just had to put a little bit more inventory on the shelves, and then make sure everybody was trained in how to don and doff these types of garments. And like I said before, we got with Lee County EMS to minimize the amount of exposure. So we've got that all in place now, so I just wanted the board to know that that's where we're at on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Local 3444.
I have nothing.
Okay. Well, we've got some acknowledgements and presentations under Commissioner's business, for, Commissioner Conforti and Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Yes, Commissioner Fitzgerald called me earlier and said he wouldn't make the meeting tonight, so I'll meet with him and give him his award. The other award is for Evans M. Conforti. Commissioner Conforti has been here since 1998, and I just wanted to talk for a second. Some of the things Commissioner Conforti has done is he's been on numerous developmental projects for the district. He was heavily involved with all the buildings of all the stations, heavily involved with the trucks that we've purchased. And I must say that without his guidance, he's been fantastic in this organization and was very deliberate and very succinct and very responsible, in my view, on the way he dealt with the administration going through the economic downturn. And he's been that way for every issue that's approached this district, and has handled it what I would consider extremely professional. And we can't thank him enough for what he's done for this district and the men and women of this organization. Commissioner Conforti, I will miss you personally, and I'm sure the others will too. I believe Deputy Chief DeWitt wanted to say a few words too.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what the chief said. Commissioner Conforti has been here for 16 years. Over those years, I've worked with Commissioner Conforti on numerous occasions, both labor and management, now that I'm over on the management side. And I would just like to say that the way you conduct yourself on a professional level is second to none. You, in my opinion, through the 90s and 2000s, you set this department up with the help of the administration and the board members to set it up for what could be the worst economic downturn we'd seen. And I know in my lifetime, and maybe in anybody's lifetime right now. And you guys, with your guidance, set it up to where we could weather that storm. Even during that time, you had to make tough decisions about lowering the millage, doing the pension reform and all that. And without your guidance and history on the board, I think it may not have been done. I think that you bring something to the board other than just history. You bring integrity and professionalism. Like I said, I'm going to miss you, at least coming into my office in the last 2 years, and at least talking about the Yankees, even though there's not much to talk about. So you will be sorely missed, and thank you.
Ditto. Commissioner Conforti, you know exactly how I feel about you. We already spoke. I just want you to know personally how I appreciated you over the years. To me, you're the guy that's been here the longest. You know everything from top to bottom. Every time we had a decision to make, you can just pull in the back of your memory and say, well, we've already done that, and it was such and such a date, such and such a year, or this is why we're here now, or this is how we got there. So all that institutional knowledge we'll be losing, and it'll surely be missed. But thank you for everything. I really